I'm at the same time happy and sad to announce the final panel of this year's Emerge conference. Its title is Winners and Losers in the Brave New World of Digitalized Work. So here to discuss this very interesting topic, Miro Ljubinjatovic and Andrej Kohon. And the discussion will be moderated by Branka Anđelković. The floor is yours.
So, actually, welcome to the last panel that is discussing a completely different topic, and this is how digital impacts on the world of work. By opening this last panel in such a fashion, we are actually opening a completely new, I would say, world that is the world of work and the role of algorithms in this in this world. So without further ado, I would like to say that until this moment, we have two panelists. We lost two on our way to this last session, and they cannot be with us due to illness. Anyhow, we decided to run this last panel in a following fashion. We'll have two presentations, which is not really typical for the sessions that we have so far. And then in last 20-25 minutes, we will be discussing who are really the losers and who are the winners in this transformative world of work that is actually happening right now. The first panelist is going to be Andrej Kohon, and he will be pointing out to the remote work changes in the time of COVID. So Andrej, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your invitation. Yes, the research I will present was done together with my students. It was in the time when we were struggling with COVID and we were part of a Zoom generation, so that we were really conducting our studies online. And the main question of my research, or the research with together with students, this does it work, the presentation? Yeah. No. Okay. Just to, because I would like to show you. I will just, okay. Then just go to the fourth slide, I think. Yeah, a little back. Okay, maybe next slide. Maybe for the start, I was looking on the situation about work from home in Serbia and in Slovenia. This is based on our research called Kranet, which was made in cooperation with HR managers. And when we look at this data here, you can see that in Slovenia, and also quite the same as in Serbia, the work from home was not used before COVID in about 60% of our organizations. But then it was a big change. So about 20% of Slovenian organizations were using work from home. And then about 21 to 50% of employees 16% of additional companies that are bigger were using work from home. In Serbia, this was a little lower, but I would say that at the beginning it was quite the same if we look on the situation of the organizations that were implementing work from home for 50% of employees. It still doesn't work, but it doesn't matter. The questions of my research were basically what is the scope of work from home, Yes, how and very important, how do we support our employees when they work from home? It can be seen from individual perspective, so how do we support individual employee, and on the other hand, how do we support teams and groups when they work from home? And I was also interested in the role of leaders or middle managers that are very important in when we are thinking about organizing work and how it is done, how they communicate with their co-workers and so on. So can we proceed? Yes, and I will just skip to the results because I think that this is the most interesting part of our research. The volume of work has increased dramatically, and we have seen that about 67% of our respondents say they work much more as they did before the work from home was implemented. Many workers had also difficulties to disconnect because they had to be available all the time to their customers, to co-workers, and so on. And on the other side, in the last row, also the managers were very much overloaded because people were working in different times, but managers and leaders had to support them whenever they worked, so to say. It was also seen from our research that most employees report that managers expressed understanding and they tried to motivate them when they were working from home, and they tried to keep them informed. So we can proceed, please. On the other hand, there are also some positive sides of work from home. Our results show that most of employees gain new competencies, basically in using information communication technologies. But what is very important is that it was not only the role of companies that were developing those competencies of their employees, but also their friends and family members supported much of the employees. So this means that HR role has spread to the family sphere, to home space, and other people were much more important that are normally when we are talking about a working space in a company. Remote access to data was vital, and there are also some benefits that were mostly seen when people were having a very good home situation, so appropriate working space when they were working, or on the other side, the results of work from home were highly conditioned by the family situation. Of course, women were the biggest losers, so to say, in this process. And effective work organization is highly dependent on agreements, also on the length of the working day, which means that it's really vital that we discuss the right to log off also, because this really will reduce, for example, some stress and some other psychological illnesses and things that workers were dealing with when they were working from home. Can we proceed, please? And for the discussion, or to sum up, I would say that workers were not sufficiently trained for a digital disruption of COVID-19. So much of leaders, technical and family member support outside the organization was needed to support their work from home. An extremely increased volume and intensity of working from home represent a major challenge of reconciliation of work and family, and of well-being of employees when they are working from home. And we can also see from our research that there was a lot of mental distress of employees, a lot of fatigue, anxiety, stress. It was very hard to coordinate between different roles that the workers were dealing with, besides working or in the same time when they were working. And the provision of organizational support and also IT support is very important when we are working from home, and also when we will work or we are working now in a hybrid mode. So I think that social agreement with participation of all partners, you were talking today about the role of country, the government, the role of employers and employees is vital to make some new agreements, how this work should be implemented, that of course there will be always bad sides of I would say virtual work, but on the other side, we can make it better if we make it together. So if we agree what is important for workers, how to make this work, so to say, a better way of working. So I think that it's the most important is to establish a more human-oriented hybrid work of the future. So this will be all from my side. I think that I hope that I was in the time.
Actually, I don't have a watch, so I can't.
Okay.
But it seems that you were. Just a brief question before we continue. So if you would be thinking about the future, what do you think remote work during COVID time actually brought as a reversible change? And what can be actually returned to the status before COVID?
We are returned back to our fixed places of work, at least in higher education. So we have seen that there were many disadvantages in a teaching process that we don't want to repeat. So I think that if I think about the work in my area, it's most important that we have a possibility to combine either to work in a fixed place at the faculty or online. It brings a lot of advantages also for students. But on the other side, I would say that the most important is that the person has a decision how he would like to work. Would he like to work from home? Would he like to work on a hybrid mode? Or would he like to be in an office space, for example? Because the most important was really the working space. You know that people were working really in demanding situation when whole family was at home and they didn't have the proper space. On the other side, our research also proved that when a person decides how he will work, it can be very good for his I don't know, for his spare time. People had a possibility to make more pauses. For example, they report in our research that they were eating healthier. They had more time for jogging and so on. So it was not always the bad thing, but the most important was that really, if they didn't have a proper space at home, and on the other side, when they were not, they had to be all the time available to customers, not only to their co-workers. This really affected their how they felt when they were working. And fatigue was very high. So I don't know if we can go back or further, but I think that somehow we have to think about the situation that was part of our life in COVID lockdown. and really think what can we use, what good things can we use from that situation, and what we should avoid.
Thank you for this answer. Actually, I think that remote work during COVID highlighted another phenomenon that has been with us for at least 20 years, and this is platform work. We know it as an on-location platform work, Glovo, Uber, Bolt, and we also know it as remote work. Many freelancers for Serbia actually work for Upwork, Guru, and other global digital platforms. Until COVID, this particular kind of work was not so much noted, not only in our society, but in other societies beyond Serbia and beyond Europe. Now, next presentation is actually going to talk about this new trend that has been with us for a rather long time, and it is also going to reflect on the change that this trend actually brought. And then we'll see who is really losing and who is really winning from this game. Miroljube, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So my presentation is more or less on the macro level. It's working. So my presentation is more or less on the macro level. There are many processes that are changing the fields of work. Among them, here are some of them. Redefining the concept of and practice of work, of course, with increasing entering of the field of work in the private sphere of family and household, with different actions taken from the family and household, like caring for children, caring for elderly, cleaning, even the let's say most extreme types, like giving birth for relatively strangers and so on, and selling organs and so on. The second very important process is, of course, standardization of employment. Instead of having standard employment for indefinite time, for full-time employment, we now have different other types, more flexible types of employments, and of course of work, from, let's say, contracts, 0-hour contracts. We have also agency work, we have also platform work, and all of those different new ways of work and employment are bringing also the problems with the social security of those workers. And then in another process which is also very important is the breaking of the social contract between social partners from the beginning, from the end of the Second World War, when all three partners, governments of modern societies, employers and employees, workers, set a social agreement in which all were responsible for the inequality and for reducing the inequality, and all were also responsible for transfers from let's say more wealthier groups of society to less wealthier. With that, of course, there is a risk of transfer of risk to the individual today, and in some cases to the society and to the state. And with that, we can also talk about the precarity, which is, of course, let's say, more or less modern type of looking for those who are really losers in modern societies. According to Kallenberg, precarity is work with uncertain, unstable, and insecure. Okay, this type of work brings more uncertain, unstable, and insecure work in the society. Of course, we are also witnessing the emergence of new economies like sharing economy, when you actually share your house, your apartment, your car with strangers, gig economy, platform economy, and so on. And here we can also see the influence of the digitalization and the introduction of different new technologies. So we can also say that there are many causes for these changes, from demographic changes, from economic cycles, welfare state crisis, increasing unemployment, globalization, commodification, neoliberalism, and so on, and new technologies are also one of the causes for this change. Regarding the digitalization or digitization of the labor market, we can also see that there are many opportunities and also risks related to this introduction of new technologies. According to this research from Voss and Rick, new technologies can bring new jobs, of course, with some winners. You can see here some of those possible winners are computer engineers, programmers, scientists, network experts, and so on. On the other side, of course, there is also a risk of losing many jobs related to the labor market. Of course, this new technology can bring also more autonomy on the workplace, and of course it can also reduce the working time for individual. On the other side, of course, we can also see some negative consequences in let's say increasing intensity of work, and also growing share of work outside working time. According to this, of course, some consequences could be friendly and positive, and some, of course, could be also unfriendly and negative for individual, for the organization, and for the society. I will focus more on the negative consequences. Here are some named by the ILO document from 2018, and you can see, of course, underemployment, because many people are now let's say more experienced, and they have more knowledge. But in the case of new technology, it is a great probability that those workers are solely the appendix of the new technology. With the working of these negative consequences, we can also say that many of those workers have reduced pay if they are actually paid for their work. And of course, there are many other issues related to the collective agreements, especially in the case of platform workers who are usually less unionized than the standard workers. Of course, there are many other consequences like low security of jobs, low social security, inappropriate working conditions, polarization between those who are really winners in this labor market and who are losers, with shrinking middle class. Then we have also interrupted careers. We will see one example of this. And of course, overall increasing of inequality in the labor market in the society, and of course, one issue that is not here on this slide. This is a deprofessionalization of many occupations in the labor market. So I will skip these two slides. Those slides are talking about the characteristics of the platform workers. I will focus more on these responses, different responses of workers who are really working in these precarious conditions. The first theory is from the 70s. Hirschman is not talking about labor market solely, but he's talking about different relations. But according to him, we can use this theory also in the labor market. He is talking about two different choices that each partner in the relations actually have. In the case of conflicts between partners. The first choice is exit. So if you are not satisfied, or if you have some issues with your partner, or in the case of the labor market, if you have issues with your employer, you can exit. You can leave the job, you can find some other jobs, and you can also withdraw from the labor market. The second choice is to raise your voice, to actually mobilize your group of workers to change or improve the situation in which this group is finding itself. Those two choices are more or less related to the third issue. This is the loyalty. If partners or if workers are loyal to the organization, then they will choose probably more raising the voice than exit. If they are not feeling loyal to the organization, they will leave the company. Another theory is from Guy Standing. I hope you know him already. He wrote in 2011, he wrote Precariat, the New Dangerous Class. And in this book, he also talks about 4 different feelings that precarious people have or feel in the society. The first one is enemy. This is lack of social norms and lack of social values. The second one is alienation, related also to the lack of opportunity and lack of social norms. And both of those feelings, or both of those A's, are bringing passivity in those people. The next one is anxiety. This is related, of course, with extremism, nationalism, populism, anxiety, because those people are trying to find real standard jobs, and instead of this, they are finding themselves in different casual, short-time works, and so on and so on. And the last one is anger, and Standing is relating this feeling with the activism, and according to him, this is a more desirable feeling among those 4 feelings. The next response from workers could be also adaptation. In the case of accepting the recent situation at the labor market, many of those workers are accepting this situation, and of course they are trying to adapt to this situation, usually trying to get some gig jobs, sharing economy, in platform economy, and so on. But those types of adaptation are really only diversification of survival strategies. Those strategies are not offering no long-term security and social security in the labor market and also in the society. One of those. Could you just press this link here on the multiple jobs? This is one of these, let's say, types of adaptation to the new situation. This person left the one very important job. She was a former teacher, and instead of that, she's now working in 5 different jobs. The only reason for this is that she felt that in her previous job in teachers as a teacher, she felt that she had to think about this full time, and instead of that, she is not now working full time. She's working in 5 different jobs, and she doesn't have shows long-term social security. Okay, we can talk also about solidarity economy. This is new type of organization for those workers in the platform economy and also those in flexible works. In this case, people are organizing to give them new opportunity outside the actual labor market, with time banks, with or inside the labor market, with cooperatives or guilds. And I'm coming here with the last slide, some solutions. Of course, we can talk about solutions from all 3 social partners, from representatives of employers, workers, and from the state. But you can see here that I don't have the solutions from the employers because it is not very likely that the employers will take initiative to change the current system. In the case of trade unions or representatives of workers, there are 3 different trends. The first one is to deal with claims of misclassification of workers, especially in the platform economy. The second one is connecting groups of those platform workers, especially in the case of Uber drivers, with some trade unions. And then the next one is, of course, trying to promote new legislation in which there is place also for platform workers. And the last point was or is that the state has a really important role in all of this, especially because it provides labor market standards and legislation, and also provides collective bargaining legislation. In both cases, the state should stick with the provided standards and, of course, with legislation. In the case of big inequalities between platform workers and, of course, those who are working in the standard employment, we can also use the taxes and transfer or redistribution of wealth from those with bigger amounts of wealth and transfer to the less fortunate ones. And of course, we can also talk about universal basic income, especially in the case when automation is also replacing workers. And of course, there are also some attempts to fundamentally change or overhaul the regulations relating to work and social contracts, again related to the labor market. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was, I would say, quite insightful presentation, offering problems, but at the same time also offering some solutions. In a nutshell, I would say that we are talking about disturbed power balance between employers, workers, and the state. So that is the bottom line. When we are thinking really of viable solutions, Andre, what do you think these could be? all the ones that are listed, of course, are possible, but are they really feasible? And then I will also open the floor for discussion and questions from the audience. Andrei.
I would say that from what was mentioned on the last slide, I believe that the collective bargaining is the answer, at least in Slovenia. To express voice, I think that one is enough. So you cannot do anything else. So you can do it individually, but individually you are not so strong as a part of institutionalized partners. So in Slovenian case, for example, it was a lot of discussion about Uber entering Slovenia, and the young unions, it was mentioned, Young Plus Union was the very important actor that banned the entrance of Uber to Slovenia. So this would be, of course, one of the solutions. But it depends on the different states and regimes that are implemented across Europe. We know that there are really different, the role of unions is really different, and their power is also very differently distributed in different countries. But on the other hand, when we are talking about European unions, and I think that here could be a way to strengthen the voice of employees, because as Miki said, employers are not the ones that are changing legislation. They are really striving for I don't know, profits, development. They are using different words, different terms. But on the other hand, it's always a pity that we are really, when the fire starts, we try to take it down. So I think that we should think about those questions ahead, so that we are really prepared for the future that would be better, mostly for employers, I think, employees, because they are the ones that are also legally and so on the weakest side. And the human face of progress begins with a person, I think, and this is the most important. Thank you.
May I just add two things about the role of the state? Last year, the Supreme Court of UK decided that workers in the platform economy are actually workers. So they got a really big, let's say, win in this battle from I don't know, maybe some from 2013 or something like that. Another one example was from maybe a few weeks ago. The regulatory authority of Tokyo also decided that Uber drivers, especially Uber Eats drivers, can also participate in the collective bargaining. So those are two examples of this important role of the collective bargaining in solving the situation and solving the problem of platform workers.
Thank you. Please, we have a question from the audience.
I wanted to thank both speakers. These are both incredibly timely talks. I'm tempted to say a couple of things. One, I just want to register briefly and maybe get your reaction. I'm very skeptical of the idea of collective bargaining as the solution, because I think I'm from California and we've had these debates about Uber drivers in the last few years. They passed a law and then they had to create an immediate carve out, because if you have collective bargaining, if you raise it, it's obviously with good intentions, and you're going to improve the standard of living for the people who are doing this full time, but you're going to massively decrease the flexibility of these companies. And so someone who is wanting to drive for 10 hours a week or something like this, it's going to be much harder for them to get hired. It's the same dynamic if you raise the minimum wage to $15 or $20 an hour. Sure, it's good for some workers, but it makes it very, very hard for low-skill workers to get hired on at basic jobs like McDonald's, basic service jobs, and so on. But I wanted to the bigger question I want to ask is about actually going back to the work from home thing. I think all of these questions are absolutely essential about the psychological outcomes and well-being and work-life balance. But another thing about work from home on a longer time scale has to do with the building of social capital. So for instance, I'm here in person at this conference. I'm a younger academic. If this conference were on Zoom, it would be much, much less effective for me in terms of building connections that are going to be potentially, resources for me later in my life, later in my career. So I think work from home really benefits the established mid-career and late career professionals. But I would suspect it's very bad for younger workers because they're not getting face time with management. And so it's going to further entrench certain kind of gerontocracy, I think, that we have, especially in a lot of European and North American societies, in terms of privileging the older and the established over younger people in the labor market.
Yeah, it's true what you are saying. The social capital really goes down, I would say. It's the research shows that, for example, teamwork is much less effective, efficient. People are lacking these personal contacts and communication. And it's also very important that there is reduced creativity between people when they are working online, because I don't know, sometimes we can receive very important information from faces of our co-workers, and not much words are needed, which is almost impossible when we are working online. So yes, companies are dealing a lot with this question: how to on the other side re-establish the company culture, because on the other side, many people, high educated people mostly, are thrilled about work from home. Because they can, as I was explaining before, they can do many other things. They are happy with this situation, and maybe they are not thinking about the community, working community anymore, so much as they would if they would be a part of a really everyday community coming to work and so on. So I don't know what will happen, but there are some examples that companies are really trying to somehow answer the response of employees when they would like to work from home. And we done now in December a new research on hybrid work, and it showed that at least in Slovenian companies, it's very common that they can work from home up to 3 days, mostly only 2 days a week, because of those reasons that you are mentioning, because it's very important that people are together. And also another question is important, or situation. It's very hard to organize work when people are really very individual in their decision when they would like to work from home and when they would not do so. This would be my answer. And of course, for the first part, I somehow agree about the collective bargaining in American environment is quite different. But I think that I will not go further. So I think that I was clear in.
We have
before.
one more question from the audience.
Yes, I mean, maybe it's a bit of a divergence from the work environment, but I'm not sure if you've heard the story. A week ago, Amar Reshi, he's a designer who created a fully AI-based story and printed it actually and sold it. And so this is like a challenge to say, okay, this is something that you have to deal with, and it's in the market, and there's no law yet to protect. So there was an anger by the artists and author community. It's not mainly about work, but it's the risk of them being redundant and say their work being used to promote AI products without consent. So this is a bit of a minefield, perhaps, but what are your reflections on these discussions?
Miki?
Well, I didn't hear about this, so I can't tell you much about this practice. But the problem with AI in the labor market is that for me it's a part which could be used either ways. It depends on who is using it and how, for what. We were talking about morality in some previous discussions, but morality is I don't know. It's a subjective issue. For us, it's really moral to act socially, to act in the good for the society in which you are living. But for employers, they are trying to balance between morality and, of course, profit motive. Now, in different societies, there are different relations between those two different types of action. Actually, many of you already know about the social responsibility of companies and so on and so on. But in practice, many of those companies are socially responsible in, let's say, just giving money for, let's say, sport clubs and so on, and not thinking about the real issues in the society. And here we have a new issues, and for me the biggest problem is that the state or the governments are acting very slowly in solving those issues. They are waiting for I don't know who, waiting for different developments, and after they are acting and trying to solve the actually already increasing problems in the society.
Thank you for these answers. Thank you for the questions from the audience. I would like to conclude with maybe 2 sentences. At this point of time, while we are sitting here, there is an important piece of legislation being discussed at the European level. And this piece of legislation is called EU Directive on Improving Conditions in Platform Work. This piece of legislation is expected to have a large impact on EU countries and also on neighboring countries. That is A. But B, and even more importantly, this piece of legislation actually touches upon algorithmic management that we didn't have time to talk about today in this last session, which is a very important segment of platform economy and platform work. And in conclusion, the question is really employer who is a human our boss in platform economy, or it is really an algorithm that is taking over? Thank you for your attention. It was a pleasure to having you.
It's always
today.
human.
We'll see. Thank
because
you so much.
humans are actually making those algorithms. So
thank you again.